I shouldn't have been at that ceremony. That's what the university's official list says. That's what the shiny yellow program placed in front of every chair off stage confirms. I searched for my name, tapping each line like a child waiting for a birthday invitation. Nothing. But my sister's name appeared clearly. Evelyn Hastings, system engineering, graduated with excellent results. The honor cord was written next to her name, for the girl who had left school at the start of the spring semester. She had been suspended without explanation, accused of cheating on assignments and a falling grade point average. The student council called it a fake document. You lied. You falsified your documents. And yet you sat near the front row in your neat robe, your hair curled in sleek curls, your lips red and full. My parents kept waving at the empty chair, as if I was standing backstage, ready to step out. I stood at the back, hidden in the shadows. My wrinkled cloak was stuffed into a ragged cloth bag. My hair was hastily pinned up with 2 clips that had almost all the paint broken off. The principal's medal was folded neatly in an envelope and placed in a bag, hidden like a secret that no one knew. They said the awards would be announced live at the ceremony. No one was notified in advance. No names were on the program. That morning, I only ate half an apple, then quickly drank a cup of cold tea. I slept only a few hours last night, struggling to finish the final report for a research project on deteriorating coastal bridges. An important scientific project, publicly archived under my name. The head of the department stepped up to the podium, holding in his hand a strange clipboard that I had never seen before. He cleared his throat, his voice low but clear. We have a small correction before we proceed. One of the students listed earlier, Evelyn Hastings, is no longer eligible to receive a degree. The whole hall roared like a storm sweeping through dry leaves. I didn't turn to look at my parents. I didn't need to. I could only feel the cold surrounding their row of seats. The silence suddenly interrupted, as if the applause had also become intermittent, cracked like glass. Then the principal stepped forward, her voice echoing as cold as a knife. Please accept everyone's recognition. Clara Hastings, a final year student majoring in systems engineering, was awarded the President's Medal for his perseverance and outstanding achievements. And that was it. They looked at me with eyes that never thought I could step up to that podium. This story didn't start today. It's been brewing for a long time, since before I even entered college. In my house, no statements of favoritism are ever spoken aloud. No heated arguments or cruel ultimatums, just silent choices, leaning to one side. My sister received an offer letter to study at Westbridge University. Straightforward and sure, marketing major, full scholarship, no hesitation. My parents celebrated as if I had just won an international award. They ordered couple sweaters with the school logo printed on them, and my dad posted the news on Facebook the same day. As for me, 2 weeks later, I received my acceptance letter, a full scholarship to study engineering at Whitman College. My mother just smiled and said, "That's great, Clara. You always know how to handle things." That was the first time she called me resourceful. And from then on, I understood that it was not a compliment. It was an explanation for everything that happened. When my parents spent all their money on my sister's freshman dorm deposit, they told me not to worry, because my tuition was covered. When my sister called home in a panic about expensive books, my father transferred the money that same afternoon. When I asked about the $100 fee to enter the simulation lab, my mom just frowned and said, "Maybe your department has a fund to support disadvantaged students." They always find ways to pay for their sister's every need. As for me, they find every way to avoid having to do that. I still remember the feeling of loss, as if I had been pushed to the sidelines of my life. All my efforts, all my dreams, were just invisible things that my family never wanted to acknowledge. Evelyn calls home at least twice a day. She FaceTimes from brightly lit rooftop parties, from swanky Greek fraternity meetings, from international exchange program presentations she never actually attends. She never asks how I'm doing, and I don't need to. I've long since faded into the background. During my sophomore year of college, I worked 3 part-time jobs to make ends meet. I tutored freshmen in Calculus 3, worked in the campus bookstore taking inventory, and hosted a late-night radio show on the student radio station. My only meals consisted of discounted food from the cafeteria or anything that could be heated up on the illegal hot plate in my dorm room. When my roommate once asked me why I set my alarm for 4:55 a.m., I quickly replied, "The data server has to be empty by 6, so I need some quiet time to run my code." When I called home, I would only say a few short sentences about school. Evelyn always had something more interesting to say, and that was all they cared about. I tried to tell them that I had co-authored a paper on fault-resistant frames for bridges vulnerable to climate change. My father would say, "That sounds complicated." Then he would ask, "Have you heard about Evelyn's new internship? Her boss says she's a genius, a problem solver. 2 daughters, 2 different stories." They didn't see the hours I spent standing uninvited at job fairs, the nights I spent debugging infrastructure models with borrowed equipment, or the lonely days I spent in a dark lab because I couldn't afford a deposit. My mother sent Evelyn a pair of sparkly heels so she could confidently defend her thesis. Me? She only sent me a thumbs up when I told her my paper had been published in the Whitmore Journal of Civil Engineering. To be honest, I never really expected to be treated fairly. I just wanted recognition for once, but that never grew in the barren soil of my family, especially when one child was shining brightly and the other was suffering silently. It wasn't until my junior year that I stopped wishing for such meaningless praise. I printed out my own paper certificate, laminated it, and pinned it behind my dorm room desk lamp. On hungry days, I looked at it as proof of my existence. One spring day, as I walked through the student center, I passed Evelyn standing talking to her friends. She didn't recognize me. She had an iced coffee as big as a cold glass, her fingernails glinting in the sunlight. She said something like, "My sister's studying engineering, all that hard math. It's crazy." The group laughed. I didn't stop. I had to go to the lab to get online, to keep training that bridge to stand, even though no one knew it was cracking. By senior year, I was no longer trying to catch anyone's eye, especially not theirs. My world had shrunk to a small, steady routine: the morning walk from the student parking lot, the click of the coffee machine in the engineering building before 8, the third computer on the left in the structural simulation lab, the only one that hadn't crashed while running a neural network. I carried a notebook with me, filled with handwritten calculations, scented ink, and sleepless nights. It wasn't anything special, just my armor. On the inside cover, I'd stuck a note I'd written myself in my first semester: "Worthy of the sunrise." I couldn't remember where I'd heard it. It might have been on a podcast, or maybe I just made it up. But it became my anchor. As the sky turned pale blue and the campus slept, I hunched over load maps and failure charts, working hard toward an engineering degree that no one believed I would ever earn. Only Ms. Reed, who taught advanced structural systems, noticed. With a calm, knowing look, she quietly slipped a folded piece of paper into my backpack one night after a seminar where I had presented my research on cracking in coastal bridge piers. I found it a few hours later, between my energy bars and my course syllabus. You are the silent engine of progress. Keep building, Clara. I read the note over and over, carefully placing it behind the sticky note on my notebook. That night, I stayed in the lab until nearly 3 in the morning, eating dry cereal from a Ziploc bag, running simulations until the motion sensor turned off the lights. I waved my hand to turn them back on. It felt like the room knew me better than anyone else ever did. Meanwhile, Evelyn posted a color-corrected photo of a frozen margarita on social media with the caption, "Spring break is a state of mind." I only saw it because a mutual friend tagged her. Otherwise, I still wouldn't know where she was. The next morning, I walked into the lab, my wet shoes squeaking on the cold concrete floor. I had just received news that my team had won first place at the Midwest Civil Engineering Systems Conference with a bridge model I had helped design. It had been nominated for a National Research Award. I forwarded the email to my parents. My mother's response was one sentence. "I'm sure that will look good on your resume." Evelyn posted videos of herself dancing barefoot on a beach terrace. That weekend, I overheard faculty discussing a college grant Evelyn had supposedly received for her final marketing project. The course didn't exist, and the professor who taught it had left the department 2 semesters earlier. It took me a few days to find out more. She had forged summer enrollment papers, sent photoshopped screenshots of her tuition to my parents, and then wired the refund to her own account. With the money, she rented a vacation home on the Emerald Coast. She wasn't hiding it. A photo her friend posted showed Evelyn holding a drink as big as her face, standing on a balcony, her hair blowing in the ocean breeze. That same day, I was in the materials lab, my hands covered in graphite dust, adjusting force sensors with a wrench that kept slipping off its bolt. My back was aching, and my stomach was growling for vending machine snacks. I closed her picture window, not out of anger, but to keep my focus. I didn't tell on her to my parents. I was tired, and I had learned that being tired doesn't mean failure. The medal announcement came just 2 weeks later. An untitled email. Claire Carter will receive the Chancellor's Medal for Academic Resilience. The graduation ceremony will take place shortly. Please keep it confidential. I read it 3 times and then pressed save. Not because I didn't believe it, but because of a sharper sense of coldness. I had built my own bridge. As for them, whether they crossed it or not was up to them. The email came quietly. No frills, no emojis, no misdirected family group. Just a few lines from the dean's office at the direction of the principal. The medal recipient's name would be kept secret until the ceremony, seating had been assigned. I typed back, confirm. Then I closed my computer and unplugged the 3D printer I was sharing with the lab. The night before graduation, it rained. Not a storm, not a torrential downpour. Just a gentle, persistent southern spring rain, soaking through even the cheapest umbrellas and the deepest metaphors. I stayed late at school, doing nothing but walking around campus, passing the student center, the library steps, the vending machine that once gave me 2 granola bars for the price of 1. As I rounded the corner of the old art building, I saw someone sitting on the hood of a borrowed car. Even from a distance, I knew it was Evelyn. Her hair was wet, mascara streaked in perfect streams down her cheeks. In her hand, she held a crumpled envelope stamped red. Notice of expulsion. She didn't see me at first. I approached slowly, gently, afraid that if I startled her, she would vanish before my eyes. When she looked up, her eyes were wide, but her look wasn't fear. "Don't tell them," she whispered, her voice hoarse. I was silent. Deep down, I knew I had no right to ask her why she lied, or how long she had planned it, or how much money she had forked over for the pineapple-rimmed plastic cups and the rented balconies. I just knew I couldn't take another heartbreak. I looked down at my phone. Amber was still texting about the graduation party as if nothing had happened. I should have said something, at least one sentence. But all the words fell to pieces. Not because I was angry, nor because I was bitter. It was simply no longer necessary. I guess shame is negotiable, she whispered, almost to herself. Those were the last words I said before I turned and walked away. The next morning, the campus was decked out in splendor. Crowds began filling up by 7:45, folding chairs lined up in neat rows, honor ribbons glistening in the early morning sun. Faculty robes fluttered in the breeze like silent prayer flags. The last hairpin on my head was broken. My hair was askew. I didn't care. I was in the last row with the engineering group, my name missing from the broadcast. There was no proud family status on social media. My father emailed the dean to ask for preferential seating for Evelyn. Our eldest daughter will be receiving an honorary degree, he wrote. We would like to be seated near the stage. The assistant dean replied very politely, saying that seating was arranged on a first-come, first-served basis. Evelyn's chair was in the front row, draped in her vestments. My parents were still waving at that empty chair, smiling expectantly. Little did they know that the person they were waiting for wasn't me at all. I did not rush to them, nor did I turn back to be seen. I came to end the silence, nothing more, nothing less. In the middle of the ceremony, the dean stopped speaking. She leaned toward the provost, who was looking at a second notepad, one that had never appeared on the podium before. A slight stir spread through the hall. A few parents shifted, and students looked up from their phones. The head of the department stepped up to the podium again. Her voice was still steady, but carried a different tone, cold and resolute. We are announcing a significant adjustment to the published list. Evelyn Carter is ineligible to graduate and will not receive her diploma today. Those words do not need to echo to reach the listener. The silence that followed spoke volumes, quiet, suppressed. I did not turn back to look at my parents. I sensed the silent change. My mother's lips parted, her hand paused in mid-wave, my father's fingers tightening on the program as if he could make it move again. A low murmur crept across the rows of seats. Not anger, just a dull ache. People's visceral reaction when the story they once believed is slowly torn apart, stitch by stitch. The principal stepped forward, her eyes leaving the page. Excellence is often hidden in quiet efforts. A moment of silence fell. Please join me in recognizing engineering student Clara Carter, who was awarded the Chancellor's Medal for academic tenacity and resilience. A moment of silence without applause. Then a few sporadic claps rang out, sparse like rain on a tin roof, followed by a more vigorous round of applause. I did not look up. Walking down the aisle, my eyes stared straight ahead, past the bachelor caps, the proud parents, and the confused little siblings. The medal placed around my neck was heavier than I expected, perhaps the weight of all the sacrifices and efforts I had gone through. Or maybe that moment finally caught up with me. When I returned to my seat, I did not look back. I don't need it. They saw me. After graduation, I stood by the cool stone fountain on the south side of campus, where students often wrote their initials in white chalk. I don't have any chalk with me. Instead, I kept a copy of my research paper in my hand, folded it neatly, and stuffed it into my jacket pocket. An old habit, a silent protection. I heard footsteps before I saw them. My mother still wears high heels, too high for the cobblestone floor. My father held the program in his hand, as if it had betrayed him. Evelyn paced behind, clutching her vestments like a mask she was never worthy to wear. "Clara," my mother called. Her tone was not a friendly greeting. It was like a question disguised as my name. "Why didn't you tell us?" she asked, her voice strained. I looked straight into her eyes. The smudges of mascara around the corners of her eyes said more than words could say. "I told you," I replied evenly. "It's just that no one listens." Evelyn bowed her head, her feet drawing anxious circles on the ground. "I mean, we don't know anything," my father added as if to lighten the mood. "I sent my research paper on adaptive load response of suspension bridges to my parents' email," I said, "but they never opened it." "That's not what we're talking about," he snapped, his voice heavy. "We're talking about the daughter, about this morning." "No," I said, keeping my voice calm. "You're talking about shame. I'm talking about patterns." They were silent. I took the metal off my neck and held it up to their eye level. "This isn't just about you," I said. "It's about all the late shifts, all the missed meals, all the nights you stayed in the lab because your accommodations were canceled and you didn't want to ask for help." My mother let out a long breath, so choked that it was almost a sob. Evelyn took a step toward me. "So what?" she said, her voice thin. "You're perfect, and I'm the villain?" I looked straight at her. For the first time, really looked. "You're not perfect," I said. "You're just tired, but tired doesn't mean broken." She blinked, her gaze heavier than any words I'd ever uttered. Then she turned away, as if to avoid a truth that I was all too familiar with. My father took the program, folding it carefully, as if he had to control the only thing left in that moment. "I don't understand," he muttered, his voice choking. "Why should I hide it?" "I'm not hiding it," I replied, my voice soft but firm. "People just choose to look away." The silence that followed was no longer forced. It carries the meaning of an ending. I turned and walked back towards the large schoolyard, where the stage was now empty and the crowd was starting to disperse. "Where are you going?" my mother asked, her voice soft as if she didn't dare make a sound. "I'm going to start something," I replied. "Something that doesn't need anyone's approval or applause." I walked, not hurriedly, not defiantly. Just each step is steady, gentle, and very real. I was not at the family dinner that night, and so do they. I had made a reservation a few months ago, under the name Evelyn, at a small waterfront restaurant in downtown Seattle. One with warm yellow lighting and old wooden chairs that squeaked on the floor. I pictured the three of them sitting there, trying to bend the silence of the drive, trying to weld the morning into a story they could bear. As for me, that night I sat alone in a cramped apartment off campus, sharing the space with two nursing students. My phone vibrated just once, a text from my mom. "I'm proud of you. We'll talk soon." I did not answer. 3 weeks later, I was on a one-way flight to Portland, accepting a job offer at a small but vibrant structural engineering startup. The starting salary wasn't great, but I got full autonomy and access to really meaningful projects: floating bridges, tidal bores, smart infrastructure systems that could adapt in real time, things that carried real weight, not just paper. On my first day at work, I carefully pinned the principal's Medal of Honor on a small bulletin board on my desk, not centered, just enough to see it every day. Next to it, I taped a small piece of paper, a message I've carried with me for years: "Be worthy of the sunrise." Below it was Professor Reed's handwriting, the ink faded but still legible. "You are the silent force that pushes progress forward." During lunch break, I often sit by the window, watching flocks of seagulls flying over the harbor water. I pulled out my pencil and sketched out my first load distribution design: soft curves, subtle stress lines, meticulous notes in the margins. For the first time in years, my hands moved without feeling tired or heavy. Justice is not a flash in the pan. It was a sturdy structure, built slowly, beam by beam, until even the doubters stood beneath it, calling it their shelter. July came, and my mother sent a long email. She told of refinancing their old house and how they used some of the money that was supposed to go to Evelyn's tuition to pay off the debt. There was a slight hesitation in his voice, as if he was not apologizing. Attached is a photo of my father repairing a cracked stone step, calling it progress. I put that photo in the archives folder where I keep my mementos, silent evidence. Fall comes early in Portland. The air is chilly with the scent of pine needles and dew. I bought an old coat, started walking home after work to feel the gentle transition between the heart of the city and my soul. On Thanksgiving morning, I received a letter with no return address, but the handwriting was familiar down to the last detail. Inside was a single photo: Evelyn, hair neatly tied back, standing next to a brick wall of a construction site, holding a Habitat for Humanity hammer. Her smile seemed shy, but there was determination in it. Below the photo, the handwritten caption reads, "The beams don't care who nails them, as long as they hold the structure." I pinned that photo right below my note, not for forgiveness, but just proof. One Friday night, the company invited me to speak at Whitmore College during Alumni Week. I almost refused, but then thought of the old fountain, with its nameplates faded with time. I returned in silence, without pomp or show. After a talk on adaptive systems and resilience, a freshman approached, eyes anxious and curious. "Do you ever wish your family had realized it sooner?" I did not answer immediately, then slowly said, "No, I just wish I had stopped waiting sooner, before I left this place." I walked to the old fountain. It had just been cleaned. The nameplates had been wiped clean, like a whiteboard. I took a piece of white chalk from my pocket and wrote 3 small letters at the base of the pedestal: CC, Claire Carter. Next to it, I drew a wind turbine, a symbol of my first science project in 5th grade. That little project measured wind speed using a plastic spoon and a straw. My father never came to see it. Wind, movement, balance, things that continue to exist without applause or recognition. As I stood there dusting off my hands, looking out at the courtyard where they once clapped for others, I didn't recognize the person who was really keeping everything standing. They can't delete me anymore, because I was never invisible. Just an inconvenience they don't want to admit. Now, I cannot be ignored, and I don't wait for them to realize it anymore.